Good. Yeah, no, they're growing. In fact, that one is probably about a year old. You'd be shocked. Yeah, the middle one is like 6'2" now. No, the oldest one's bigger. The middle one now is bigger than me too. I'm the middle family now. I'm the smaller now. I can still outweigh the middle.
Try to find some way.
I'm trying to do something about it.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. I gotta get closer to the light. That's exactly what you saw when I hit that. Yeah.
That's probably the good idea.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I know I've got a few of my staff that's running around. We were running out of Valley View over here, so I appreciate everybody being punctual. We were a little bit right on the tail end just at the start time. They wanted to try to make sure we get everybody's name, and if we get your email address, that's great. One of the things we like to do is send out we're unlike sort of maybe Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or any of these. We will not send 10 emails a day, or in some cases 20 emails trying to raise money. We usually send a lot of informational ones out. Usually in the interim, maybe once, twice a month tops. During session, 3-4 times a month, just sort of let you know what's going on. We do a little more current stuff when we get to Facebook, more of a every day, every other day. If we're traveling, here's where we're at, here's where we're going to be. Let you know from that standpoint. So I'll introduce, where did they go? I see 3. I don't see where Jennifer ran off to. I think she ran out. So I'll wait and introduce staff here in a little bit. But again, thanks for coming out. It's an honor to serve you guys here in Lake Kiowa, Cook County, and all the other 21 counties. HD 68, we've got the most in the entire district. A little update on the family. Lydia and I yesterday celebrated our 24th wedding anniversary, and so thank you. And as a bad politician, I took her to a committee meeting in Austin. So, dealing with deer breeders and an issue with a lot of our constituents. But we did at least stop in Fort Worth and have a nice dinner on the way back home. The 3 kids, they're my youngest 2 are in high school. Kate is a sophomore. Grant's a senior, and Austin's sort of a junior, senior, somewhat at A&M, studying mechanical engineering and doing some internship in the oil and gas industry, and really doing well, and very proud of him. What I'm going to do is try to run through some highlights of the session, just in overall, talk a little bit about some of the things we did individually through the office, dealing with rural Texas, and then try to run through those relatively quickly and save a lot of time to answer any questions, because a lot of things I want to talk about came because people brought them up as ideas that we dealt with. The one thing we have to do in session is we have to pass a budget, and very proud of the budget we passed. Greg Abbott and numerous other groups, TPPF, come out and says, one of the best budgets, maybe the best budget ever, very conservative. We stayed below what a lot of people consider that measurement being population and inflation. Even though we stayed under population inflation, we put $800 million into border security, even though that's the responsibility of the federal government. We paid for that. That'll put 250 new troopers on the border. It'll have them, those that aren't on the border, we're going to pay them more than 50 hours because we can't bring enough of them online fast enough to be able to do that. And we passed E-Verify for the state and the state contractors, trying to turn off some of the magnets of attracting illegal workers into the state. On the DPS troopers, though, I will tell you, and hopefully you'll get a chance to see them at church or at dinner and not on the side of the road, but you need to tell those guys and ladies thank you, as well as our game wardens. They're almost like our unsung military in Texas. They've left Cook County and they've gone down to the border. They go down about once a week, every month, it seems like. And they have to leave their wife and kids back home and to deal with everything else, or their husband and kids back home, because we do have a few. In fact, our game warden, Darla Barr, a good friend of mine, is our game warden. She's been down the border. And they've got to leave their families and do that. So please tell them thanks when you see them. We also passed in education, and while we did cuts, we found more money for K through 12 education. We put $1.5 billion more than what growth of the student population and inflation is, sort of getting caught back up from where we were in the 82nd session. We did a lot of cuts from there. We'll talk a little bit more about education. But one of the committees I served on, and I was really glad to get on it, I think it's probably the most important committee in the state, and that's Ways and Means. It deals with taxes. Taxes touches every single person in this room and every single person in the state of Texas. Appropriations doesn't always do that. If you don't work in education, don't work in healthcare, the prisons, and some of those, it doesn't necessarily affect you as much. But everybody's affected by what our tax policy is. And here in November, you're going to be asked to vote on a constitutional amendment that will raise the homestead exemption $10,000 more and make that $25,000. So trying to give some tax relief back to our homeowners. And then we also reduced the margins tax, our business, some people call franchise tax. We're going to cut that 25% across the board. We still have the cap that if you do less than $1 million, you don't have to pay any margins tax. That really takes 90% of all the businesses in the state of Texas don't have to pay anything. But for those 10% that are left over, we cut that tax rate. That's going to make our economy stronger, better job opportunities and other things from that standpoint there. A few of the other things, while those two are what you probably heard in the news, we did things like we cut the occupational tax. So for our CPAs or attorneys, investment advisors, and different ones that were paying an occupational tax, we decided, why are we picking on this profession versus everybody else? Everybody would be equal in this, and so we eliminated that tax in that regards. The comptroller Glenn Hager came out with 8 tax cuts that he wanted to see that were either, it cost us almost more money to audit and collect it than what we really brought in. And some of them were very outdated. I passed 5 of those 8 tax cuts for Comptroller Hager, and was glad to do it. The very last, and not only included in that was HB 1905, which was the very last bill passed on the very last day in either house, and it was mine. And it was last because I'd actually had to move it to the back of the counter. I was working around some misconceptions by some people, and we got it done. But and part of the problem is when it passed out of the House and went over to the Senate had made a mistake on one of the comptroller's bills, and so they put that Senate bill on my bill, and so they added it as amendment. Well, in state law, that's called, or in the House rules, that's a 2-subject matter, and you can call a point of order on that bill, and you can kill the entire bill. And so what you usually do is you call it, and you say, I want to go to conference with the Senate, and you fix it, and you say, look, I can't get this in. You got to strip out your tax cuts, and we'll just leave this one little tax cut in. Here, what I sort of asked the parliamentarian, I like to sort of think out of the box. So I came back over to the Senate and I said, hey, let's get these other 7 tax cuts that didn't get through, that got killed on some other deal. Let's package them all together. We'll do a big omnibus tax cut on a lot of little bitty things. And so rural ambulances are now tax exempt on buying their fuel. And that was one. A crazy one is pine nuts and pork rinds are now going to be tax-free and snack-free. So my ag guys are all happy with that. So, and it's just crazy little things. Every time you fly or ride a train, I know a lot of people travel by train anymore, but this dates back to when this tax was, you paid a nickel tax on every drink you had. Well, the airlines spend more money trying to audit it, collect it. The auditors come in and raise about $250,000 a year. We spend more money in that. We said we would rather comptrollers, auditors, go to companies, like Trinity Industries that Jack and I used to work for, and say, let's audit the real taxes and not audit these crazy little things. And so, very, very happy to work with him to get that done. On transportation, we ended the diversions in the state. As everybody knows, we pay 20 cents for every gallon of gas goes to pay for roads. Although we took a chunk of money out to pay for DPS and pay for other transportation-related things that didn't go to building roads. We say now that all that money is going to be dedicated to building toll-free public roads. And in addition to that, we said then some of the sales tax you pay on your car is going to be dedicated to TxDOT to build public roads. And that'll generate, those 2 items will generate an additional $2.5 billion every single year for TxDOT to be able to budget to do. And while Dallas and Houston need to add some lanes for congestion, we need to make sure we've got shoulders, we've got potholes getting fixed up when we're doing overlays, where we got good bridges, and we're mowing the right of ways. And those are the things that's important to our district. We're going to make sure we continue working towards those. And have met with TxDOT this morning talking about those type of items. While we did all those things, one of the things we didn't do is we didn't touch our savings account. Even though there's a whole lot of people out there that want us to drain that for a whole lot of projects that they think are very important. And so, but we still have over $11 billion now in our rainy day fund in the state of Texas. It lets us, if we do have a bad economic situation, if we do have a hurricane or a natural disaster, to be able to respond to that without having to come in, raise taxes, and potentially kill an economy. So proud about that. On education, did several things. One of the things we did is, parents sort of confused with, I don't know, how do you tell one school from another that's really good and measure schools? Because we come up with some terms that don't always mean everything to everything. But everybody knows in school what A through F meant. And so we passed a bill that says schools will now be rated A through F. And so you may see that Munster's a C and Callisburg's a B. And we're going to know, well, people in Munster may say, why are they? Superintendent, school board may be able to explain this is why, and everybody goes, oh yeah, I remember that, no big deal, and let go. Or they may say, we've got something we need to fix, but we need to understand why we're different in that regards. The governor had a few high priority items. I think his really number one item was pre-K. And this wasn't statewide pre-K. This was addressing the kids that are below certain income levels, who really, they weren't kids of y'all's, and weren't kids of your grandkids. These are kids that parents don't read to them. They haven't raised them right. And what happens is, if you don't catch them early in life, it's shown between that pre-K and third grade, if you hadn't fixed it right then and they're not up to speed, they're not going to finish school. They're going to bring the other classes down. And it was about $200 million. And initially I was against it. And I was sitting this close to the governor, and he said, Drew, this was one of the things I ran on. I need you to help me with this, and here's why. And he explained it very well and went in and voted with it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that hopefully really pay off for us with that small investment. We were able to help our retired teachers. One of the biggest things they faced going into this session was the potential of a big increase of what their healthcare costs were going to be. We were able to budget that, pay for that, and they had no increase in their healthcare costs this biennium. And we're working in the interim to make sure that we can figure out what we can do going forward to where they can adjust to that since they're on a fixed income. I'm getting close to that light, just in a big tilt over here. I love coming out and traveling the district, and that's what I'll do during the whole interim, kicking it off obviously with 35 town halls. But as I sat with one of the superintendents in Bryson, Texas, and that's between Jacksboro and Graham, he told me about a great piece of legislation we did last session that hurt his kids in Bryson. And what it did was it says, if you got a kid going to community college and taking dual credit, they can only take 9 hours outside of their district. Well, they belong to Weatherford because of some crazy borders. They don't belong to NCTC in Graham, 10 miles away. So these kids can only take 9 hours a semester over at NCTC and couldn't take any more. Well, the bill we passed fixed that, and so I'm glad to hear the issue, raise it up, and get it fixed. Make sure that the rest of the community colleges understood. We're not trying to tear down district boundaries, but we shouldn't penalize kids because they live in one town versus another town. And so, when we can fix those things, that's a good deal. We passed TRBs, tuition revenue bonds, for universities. It basically said they're going to be able to build some new buildings that'll help keep down the cost of higher education, which has ballooned too much. We need to work to continue to figure out how we can hold down the cost of college. One of the things I get, it's funny, I've got sort of the dubious title in the Capitol of being known as Representative Brackett, because what I like to do is bracket rural Texas out of all their dumb rules and laws. And just leave us alone out here, we're fine. We're fine when we're down, we really don't get that much help. But, there's a big problem in Houston and Dallas and Austin, apparently, and sad to say, in special ed classrooms, kids are coming home with broken bones and just hideous other things I wanted to mention. And they want to have video, or they want to have video cameras in every single classroom. And I said, I don't have that problem in Callisburg, Gainesville, Munster. I said, if they do, the school board locally can figure out that solution and can put those in and put the money. But if we don't have the problem, why should we spend the money and take it out of other classrooms to solve a problem that doesn't exist in rural Texas? And so we bracketed out all school districts below 5,000 in the state from that regulation. And I hope it solves the problem for the big cities, but I'm glad to know we don't have to spend money on a problem that doesn't exist in our district. One of the governor's other action items was he wanted to create a higher research fund to try to bring Nobel laureates and high-end researchers to our public universities so we could become the beacon of the world in new creative deals and really benefit our kids that are going to our public universities. I put the language together with my Chief of Staff, Jonathan Mathers, and what we did in that language was we said, okay, we're going to fund this and we're going to lay out all the game plans, but at the same time, we're going to eliminate our emerging technology fund that takes your tax dollars and bets on new upstart companies that are unproven. And we've done it. It hasn't done very well. We may have only lost half the money we put in, not all the money we put into it. But the time came to kill that program, which in government is always tough to do, is kill any program. But we were able to kill that. So we're only going to spend half as much money in research as we were spending to give away to venture capitalists to be able to do that. And so I was glad to work with the governor to be able to get that done. Second Amendment wise, I know everybody's going to be shocked, but my favorite thing on Second Amendment was not open carry or campus carry. Liked both of them, but my favorite one was I passed a bill that dealt with the TSA and a law that most people thought was a federal law. If you have your concealed license carry and you forget and leave your handgun in your purse or your bag and you go through the security, you're going to be charged with a felony, you're going to be arrested, you're going to be booked, you're going to lose a whole day of travel, you're not going to make that flight or any other flight that day. You're going to spend about $10,000 to $20,000 to be able to keep your license, keep it off your criminal record, and in about a year you'll get your license and your gun back. Everybody thought it was federal. It's a state law. So we changed the state law that says now all they can do is the same as they do in Georgia. They tell you to go back and put in your car, go back to your house and put the house and come on back. Half the people who were arrested at DFW are over 65. It is not that we have a huge amount of terrorists trying to bring guns to them. So, I may not be the smartest, but I do darn sure like common sense things. And that I thought that was good common sense gun legislation. Open carry, we did pass that. It does require a license, so it's not constitutional carry. Nobody can just, my 14-year-old daughter can't decide tomorrow she wants to all of a sudden, get one of my guns and go to school with it. You do have to have a license and go through the background check and do everything in that regards. Campus carries, we did give some ability to the universities and community colleges to set where those will be on campus, along with the regents, the president, and the students to be able to determine that. I'm very hopeful that they don't overreach and try to say only the one shed over here is the only place you can carry. I told Dr. Hadlock for years here at NCTC, my biggest issue is not, one, if you're 18 to 20, you couldn't have a CHL anyway. So it was only 21 and over. So most people at NCTC don't qualify to carry one. I was more worried about the single mother that was 45 going back to school to better her education, that was getting out of night school and walking across a dark parking lot that couldn't have her gun with her there to protect her, and she was used to carrying everywhere else she went. And that's where I really fought for that one. And so hopefully we'll make sure that that's implemented correctly. On pro-life, a couple big things this session on that. One on the life in the womb was $39.94. It eliminated sort of what became a judicial loophole where minors could go to judges that they knew would give them permission to have abortions without having to go to their parents. And so we were able to eliminate that. And then, oddly, we all think when we hear pro-life, we're always thinking of the life of the unborn, but it also does matter at the end of life. And end-of-life issues are very important. We have been, for the last 12 years in the state of Texas, there has been an issue, and we're the second worst state in the union to the fact that doctors and hospitals could take food and water at their decision away from patients and starve them and dehydrate them to death. I passed a bill with the help of all three of the major pro-life groups, which hasn't been done at all on this issue. They've never agreed, along with the help of the Catholic Church, the hospitals, the doctors, and everybody else. We came up to language everybody could live with that moves that forward and probably looking back in 10 to 20 years, whoever knows whenever, or 2 years, whenever I stop, that may be the best piece of legislation I ever passed. I mean, as hard as it is hard to believe how difficult that was to bring everybody together to get that piece done, but we did. Sort of moving to the last little bit in some of the rural issues. One, I talked to Bill back here just to let everybody else know, yeah, it's rain, you can't drive over the lakes, everything's full, but we can't forget the fact that, water is still a big issue. We've got an introduction made with the city of Dallas, and we're still trying to work with the city of Dallas, with Lake Kiowa, to be able to figure out a solution that keeps us from having to pump groundwater out just to watch it go over the spillway and go into the Gulf of Mexico every year, to where we can figure out how to do that, buy those rights from the city of Dallas, and be able to end that crazy practice and really make some money for the city of Dallas and save a lot of money for the Lake Kiowans up here. So we're going to continue to work on that. And that's a lot of what we do in legislations. It's being able to figure things out like that. We did, you'll see on that constitutional amendment in November, there's one called Proposition 5. What it does, it doesn't affect Cook County, but the small counties under 5,000 have been able to do private road work for ranch owners. Well, the state's sort of grown and some of our populations are up, and those businesses no longer exist in our small rural counties. They've all gone to Lubbock and Amarillo and Wichita Falls, and nobody does that work, and it costs you an arm and a leg to drag road graders out from Lubbock to Floydada to be able to grade a road. Well, with this thing I'm asking everybody to vote on, we'll raise that from 5,000 to 7,500. Helps Garza County, Childress County, and Floyd County in my district, and 14 other counties around the state. It's just a good common sense rural bill. For counties under 10,000, we're giving them the ability this year to be able to mow and bale their right-of-ways so that they can keep the deer and hog magnets that cause so many accidents out on the road. Hopefully it shows to be such a success that we can figure out how to do it in counties below 50,000. And so TxDOT's working through these rules, and we met today talking about those. Another one on making sure that we bracketed ourselves out, dealt with an onerous deal on prisoners that go to the mental hospital. In Dallas, it's a big problem. They send them back after we spend a ton of our tax dollars to get them mentally capable to stand trial. They go back down to Dallas and they let them sit in jail for 60 days. They become mentally ill again, and they got to send them back. Well, they had a bill that says you got 14 days after they get back from the hospital to have the trial. And that's fine in Dallas. It doesn't work where we have a lot of circuit judges in these small rural counties. We know that we do not want that inmate sitting costing us money in the county, because every day costs us an awful lot of money. And in the rare cases it takes 15 or 18 days, there's really good reason. We don't need a law that causes us basically to set them free instead of being able to do that. Passed a bill for custom harvesters that helps them be able to carry their load on one truck coming down. It'll help our farmers and ranchers. In that regards, we passed the Gainesville Hospital deal here, and we passed it, but I heard some concerns from some citizens that we might put too much debt on the hospital. And the hospital, talking to the guys there, was, hey, we want to build a new clinic on Grand Avenue. It's going to cost us $1.5 million. We want to be able to put that building up as collateral for this debt. Well, they didn't have the ability to do that. We gave them the enabling legislation and said, but they can only do $2.5 million. So that they couldn't take $20 million of equity on the existing hospital to roll it back up and debt the whole thing and leverage everything out. And so it was a win. Work for the hospital, work for the citizens to answer their concerns about that issue. We passed a TCEQ bill that allows cities to, if Lake Kiowa Water gets a fine from TCEQ, because we're below 25,000, we now can we don't have to pay the fine to the state. We get to keep the money in Lake Kiowa, and we can use it for better projects, whether it's wastewater, whether it's fixing some pipes that are leaking, or do some other things. And so that one, I think, is going to be surprising for a lot of rural towns that we're really able to help do that. We don't win all the fights, especially when you're rural. I had a bill that I came up with, sort of a semi-new term. I hate saying rural, because if I'm at the mic, Drew Springer says rural, I got 120 guys that look like, groundhogs. Go from they'll pop up. Uh-oh, what's Drew trying to take from us? And so I said non-metropolitan counties. That would be counties less than 300,000. There's only 16 counties above us, Denton being one, but there's only 16 counties that are above 300,000. 70% of the people live in those 16 counties. There's 238 counties in the rest of the state where 30% of us live. I had a bill, because I believe in economic development, rural economic development primarily, that I wanted to see 20% of the enterprise fund go where 30% of the people live. They got wind of that, and the Dallas and Houston reps started lining up at the mic to argue, we got to kill this, this is terrible, we can't be handcuffed, we can't stop a good company from coming here. And knowing I was going down, I sort of gave the bully pulpit scream, banging the fist on the mic and saying, I'm talking to the governor now, and I don't care if we don't pass this, but this is wrong. We need to make sure that we attract companies at 25 to 200, not just companies 5,000 and above, so they can show up and be in Gainesville, Texas, or Valley View, or Munster, and they can help rural Texas, because I have 21 of my 22 counties are declining in population, and the only way we're going to help turn that around is by incentivizing some of these companies to come out to rural Texas. The best thing about it is 30 minutes after I took my beating, I sat down and the governor's staff walked up and said, hey, Drew, we heard you. We appreciate everything you've done on the other stuff and this. We're going to work with you in the interim to make sure that happens. And we were down with Randy, we were down there with the guys last week to make sure that happens. Daniels, I know always, two first names always messes me up. But, and so they're working with us to do that. And so, while I may not have won it legislatively, I can win it administratively. With some of the recent Supreme Court questionable rulings, one piece of legislation we passed to be sort of proactive on was pastor protection, to make sure a priest or a pastor does not have to marry someone of the same sex if they disagree with that. And so we were able to provide that in there from that. But, with that, sort of a quick overview, maybe not that as quick as some of y'all might have liked, but there's my quick overview of that. But I really wanted to see if there's any questions I can answer on any specific legislation, any issues that are coming up. I had a great time here at the 4th of July in the morning and seeing the parade and the golf carts, and that was just that was amazing to see all those things. And I'm trying to figure out if anybody knows who was selling the little cake balls back over in the Southwest room beforehand. My wife fell in love with some of them. I won't say whether they were the kiddie ones or the adult liquor flavored ones, but we really liked them.
I know. I'll give you her name afterwards.
Thank you. So, some of the best things coming out is you find some of these hidden gems in rural Texas. But yeah, those are good. But with that, what can I answer for you?
I learned also in there. How were they able to pass something? They were passing something in Austin about the pot. So we have Colorado as a committee or something, some bill. But the thing is, Colorado is having a horrible time.
They are. I mean, we would have, if that would have come to the House floor, I guarantee you we would not have legalized marijuana in the state of Texas. There is no doubt there was 4 people of a 7-member committee that thought that passed, and one of them was the gentleman who was actually running for Senate in East Texas that wanted to make pot not just legal, but no, this was not just legal. He wanted no restrictions, no tax, no anything. It was a gift from God. Anybody would be able to use it anyway. I'm sorry, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. That is not where we need to go. We could talk about potentially some of the decriminalization aspects. That's not to say make it legal. There is something that sort of says, should we spend $250 million to imprison people that get caught with 1 or 2 joints on them? A guy had a bill Now, he was asking for a $100 fine. I said maybe it needs to be a $1,000 fine, but I'd rather somebody who gets caught with 2 joints pay a $1,000 fine, potentially have some rehabilitation tied to it, and then not cost us any money to incarcerate them and make it to where, hey, look, if they're 18, 20 years old in college, I'm not ready to ruin their life and have them with a criminal record and the fact they've done prison time with that. Yeah, it's easy. I can't remember if it's a Class A or third-degree felony at the level we were talking about. I think it was a Class A misdemeanor, but you still had to do jail time for this. You know, I'm open to something in that regards. I did a town hall in the middle of session in Graham, and they talked about it. Now, we also talked about what didn't get out of committee was medical marijuana. There's a lot of people who want to do medical marijuana. The one bill we did pass had to do with CHT oil, and it's the oil, and it doesn't have, I think it has like 0.005%. You couldn't put it in an e-vaporizer or anything, get stoned off of it. But some scientists and some doctors believe that it will help some kids and adults that have these massive epileptic seizures. I mean, and when you had the testimony and you had a young girl, 9 years old, talking about having 20 seizures a day and this would cure it, it was hard not to say that we shouldn't try that. And so that is the one thing we did make legal in that realm. I do not by any means believe it's going to be a gateway to open us up to anything else.
But you can do it, you can take the whatever the effects of that marijuana and put it in medical.
They do some synthetic ones today. You're right. And that's why we said we don't need medical marijuana. You can buy the synthetic versions that do that to stop that from now. The fact that the state needs to get into growing, dispensaries, and all the other things, you know, our founding fathers had it exactly right when they said states' rights in the 10th Amendment, because we need to see how Colorado and California and Washington and all these states are doing. I'm on this one. Sometimes I don't mind Texas being a leader in something. This one, I'm okay with us watching and seeing what happens elsewhere.
Well, I'll tell you,
and the
a
problems.
young kid already died eating candy or...
Oh, I know the edibles are terrible. I mean, that's exactly why we're not going to do
Resort
it.
lost all their people that made reservations because of pot alcohol.
But I'll tell you that the police department in Childress, Texas, loves Colorado because every car they come down and stop going there. You know, they're giving a ticket. Hey, where are you coming from? Oh, I'm coming from Colorado. Hey, we need to search your car. And they go, well, it was legal where I bought it. Well, it's not legal to bring it in Texas. So, but we are definitely not going to go down that path. What else can I answer? Yes.
The pastor protection law.
Yes.
I don't know if this is something you can really answer since it's more of a federal potential issue. That would assume that we still have the 10th Amendment without an executive order overriding the pastor protection law. Is that correct? Do you know what I'm getting at? Seems like our state's
Could the feds come in and still say, you can't do that? Yes. Well, the way the states ruled, because there's a whole lot of them that said, well, you have to issue. One of the things we talked about early on, and I think in hindsight, some of us would have liked to see this. I wish we could have taken our county clerks out of the situation from having to issue them. I wish we made that one person that the state of Texas does all the issuing, and then that way it was ours to deal with at the state level. We didn't make every elected official in 254 counties do that. You're right. I don't see the feds trying to overrule that this year. You're exactly right on that. I mean, I tried to pass an amendment on the budget that said our schools' teachers' code of ethics had to follow state law, and I got screamed at for it. Well, because they knew what I was going after with that is because in the code of ethics it says that our school teachers and principals have to recognize students that self-identify transgender and want to say, where a little boy 16 says, I want to go play on the girls' basketball team and go in their locker room tomorrow, he can do that. And so now you put a superintendent in the position, I either get to be fired for violating my code of ethics or I'm fired for violating the state law. And we could not get that done. It saddens me that our Christian values in the state are at the standpoint that we can't see that that is an issue that we need to deal with. And just, you know, you get into the transgender. I mean, then we had the transracial identification out there in Washington. And then I read about this one, and everybody knows my wife. There's a deal called transabled, people who want to act like they're disabled that aren't disabled. And they're asking doctors to cut their spinal cord so they can be. I mean, I have no earth idea if they wanted to come live with the 27 years of lineage, man. I guarantee you that, you know, nobody would choose that. But there's people with a lot of mental problems in this world, and that's why I'm always glad that we're spending more money on mental health, and I think we need to spend more. If there's one spot we need to spend more in the state, it's mental health.
Well, I have another question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can answer that this one either, because it's kind of quasi-federal. Okay, so now Obamacare is the law of the land, done deal for now, whatever. So we're one of the 37 states, 37.
That didn't put in.
That didn't put in. I'm very, I know it's an easy thing to understand, but I seem to kind of glaze over when I try to read the articles about it. But so if it's the law of the land, are we better off financially staying with what we've already done and not do the Medicare expansion? Because to me, that's an unfunded mandate.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's where
So
we in the majority of the legislative body still stands with. We are not going to expand Medicaid.
And that's
we
still
continue
legal for us to say.
That is still illegal for us to continue. That's not to say the courts won't come back at a different one and try to steer us a different direction. We continue to argue, let us do what Arkansas did. Let's have all of our Medicaid money block granted back to us. We will cover more people. We'll put in some rules that make some sense. There may be a check-in spot that you can't go to the emergency room in Gainesville. They're going to tell you got to go to the clinic, period. No, there's no emergency, but they can't do that today under the Medicaid. We could say that somebody who's at the very tip of the wage levels to be able to have Medicaid, you've got to pay a $25 copay to come have this $10,000 expense at the emergency room. Today, that's illegal. That makes sense to Texans. It says you have some skin in the game just to make you think before you go in.
So that's asking federal if we can do that, and they're saying no because they want to coerce us into
The current administration is definitely telling us no.
So
I think we're trying to hold on and crossing our fingers and hoping that 2016 by 2017 rolls around that there will be an R next to the president's name and we can start working on this. And I always remain hopeful that we are not without our own mistakes in the Republican Party by any means. And I hope we learned from 2000 to 2006 when we didn't put the things in place, when we had all the abilities to do that we need to do that now. There's several candidates that are talking about more towards states' rights. Let's push. I mean, I heard Scott Walker's last night said we need to push Medicaid back to the states. Hey, that's fantastic. We'd be the 12th largest economy in the world. Texas on its own today. Ireland's they run their own deal. They only got 4 million people, I think, and they may be number 50 in the world as an economy. It's questionable whether they're on the path towards Texas or Greece. We can figure out how to run the state of Texas, and we will run it right. Whether it's setting unemployment, whether it's setting minimum wage, all those host of issues, I fully believe that the founders were right. Let's push them down. Just like the Colorado, we'll learn whether it works or not, because somebody will try that. To be able to do it. Push our transportation dollars back down. We've got a big enough system. The roads are in place. We wash the money through the feds for interstate programs. If we just kept it here, we would save 8%. And that's on a good year. There's some years we don't get but about maybe 75% of our dollars back. Let us do that. Let us use that money to build new lanes, fix the bridge here on 35 in Gainesville, and do all those things to be able to do that. So I remain optimistic. I'm looking for the right one to back and try to figure out how to help where. Yep.
Regarding transportation, it seems that our infrastructure has really gone downhill in the last 20 years. I drive between Benton and Lake Iowa quite a few times, and know that this is probably maybe a sore subject, but, you know, our gas tax was predicated on, you know, cars that got 15 miles a gallon and all that kind of stuff. Is there any, what's your thoughts on raising the gas tax to make our roads more safer? I mean, there's potholes, and I know we've had a bad spring. I mean, the potholes, I mean, the roads are awful.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I would love to see our road system funded at, say, 90% off the gas tax, and we set that there. But we've got plenty of money in the state of Texas to do that today. So, but we would need to come back and say, we're going to cut this tax, and we're going to cut these taxes, and we're going to dedicate that one then coming in here instead of taking money out of general revenue, which is what we do today to go fund TxDOT. Because then sometimes it's too easy for them, oh, well, we're behind, and we're just not going to fund TxDOT today. TxDOT's not without their sins. I think the new groups are much better than we had, and you know, when you lose several tens of billions, I can't remember if it was a billion number that was accused of being lost. You know, we got to have the right people managing that process in there too. But I'm not opposed, but we've got the taxes. We don't need to raise new taxes. Do we need to change the tax structure? And that's why I like being on Ways and Means. Do we need to change the tax structure where we say, let's lower the sales tax in the state of Texas to 5.5% instead of 6.25%, but we're going to raise the gas tax to 30 cents. I haven't run the numbers. I don't know if that's the right. I'm just using a hypothetical in there. You know, that means in Munster, Texas, the little widow lady who just drives to Fishers and church and doesn't put 500 miles a year on her car, you know, isn't paying anymore. You know, I still like the gas tax better than I like hiking the registration fee tax on it. I imagine probably Lake Kiowa is more like Munster, not like Dallas. And that is that, you know, we tend to own a few more vehicles, and we drive, you know, I got a Jeep that I own, and I got a car that I own, and I finally got rid of a motorcycle, so I've gone from 3 to 2, and that's just for one driver. Well, there are people in Dallas, you know, 4 of them only own one car. So, and they want to spend more money because they have more road issues than we have out here. But, you know, Ron Simmons out of Denton County, there's a few of us that are working very closely as a close working group. He's sort of spearheading our transportation side. You know, Ron and I have visited about, you know, how can we make sure that we properly fund on a regular basis our roads without raising taxes overall. We've got the money to do it, we just need to allocate it properly. But I agree with you. I think our roads have not kept up with where they should be. We're starting to look like, remember 20 years ago, it used to be a joke about Louisiana, and I don't like the fact that we're starting to get closer to that than we are back to where we were. I got about 5 minutes before we got to go. If I got maybe one last question. 4 minutes. They're getting better about getting me the hook now to get me out of here. Yes. I'm not. I have $39.94, but not $39.95. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. You know, we run through, when you get 6,000 numbers, I don't even remember all my numbers.
I don't even work on
No, for the Texas Medical Association versus State Board of Examiners on marriage and family therapy. I'd be happy to just make sure the staff's got your phone number. I'll give you a call. We'll look at it if we can, and come back and get you a better answer to that. But no, you know, shockingly, there's a lot of bills that come up, and one of the things I like about this job, you know, even though we talked about increased health costs, I now write a check to work for the state of Texas because my insurance is more than what they pay me. And so I get to write a check. And so, you know, you get through all these, but every day is a learning day. You learn something else about the state of Texas or an issue that comes up, and what can we do about it. So let me look into it, give you a call back, probably while I'm driving to the next one of the other town halls the next few days on that. But, you know, I didn't do it because she wasn't in here before, but the back of the room is Jennifer Vogel, my district director. She offices in Gainesville, just on the south side of the courthouse steps. You know, call us, email us. I brought my staff up from Austin. I have Kate Ferguson, my legislative aide, and Mark Thorne Thompson, my legislative director, and Jonathan Mathers, my chief of staff. You know, they did a great job this session. Don't know if they knew what they signed up for, 'cause, you know, they thought, geez, I got a conservative, you know, I got a very conservative member of the House, and I, all in all, go up and file more bills than any other Republican did at 61. That means we have to prepare to lay all these out. We got to get witnesses. We go through all these things. I said, and they go, well, I thought you liked smaller government. I said, well, sometimes you got to file bills to eliminate bad things from the past. And so those who've seen me know that I always like to talk about my favorite one from that standpoint, which was, you know, these new key fobs. This was illegal in the state of Texas until the governor just signed it. And that's because you couldn't start your car and let it warm or cool down. Because the law was written in the 1970s by the insurance industry that said, we don't want people stealing cars, so you can't leave your car running unattended. Well, nobody knew there would be a fob that would be detected, and nobody can drive my car. Even if I unlock it, they can't drive it. So I filed a bill, passed a bill that brought common sense back to government. So, sometimes it's just technology updates. We had to pass something because nobody knew what GPS was for farm tractors, and so we had to make sure they realized that was part of the cost of being a farmer in the state of Texas, and that they don't have to pay the taxes on the GPS services of those. So we get a bunch of those through as well. But I think all in all, we had a good session. And but please let us make sure we get your numbers, and appreciate everybody coming out as always. Thank you.